Welcome to Pets in Paradise TV, the show that explores the relationship between humans and animals in one of the most beautiful places on Earth, Hawaii. Here's what's coming up in the next half hour.
Yay!
We'll visit two dogs that really can say they work like a dog. We'll take a look at the pros and cons of owning a purebred dog, and if a pure breed is really the right breed for you. In our segment, It's All About the Breed, we'll take a look at one of the fastest and sweetest dogs around, the Italian Greyhound. And from a puppy to a full-grown adult, we'll witness what it takes to become a service dog. It's all just ahead on Pets in Paradise TV. While most dogs wait at home all day for their master to return from work, there are some dogs that are also working all day at a real job.
One of our canines here is Scout, who works in hotels and residences throughout the islands and outer islands.
Scout is a bed bug hunter, and so is his coworker Ollie, using their keen sense of smell to sniff the bloodsuckers out. It's a dirty job that takes training.
To keep their accuracy up, what we do is we train them every day with live bed bugs. When I hide them, I make sure that they're not going to be infesting my own house. So I have a netting around the top of the vial. The odor will come out, but the bugs won't come out. So what I'll do now is I'll hide these in our living room, in the couch.
The bugs are hidden, and Scout's sniffer goes to work.
Typically, when we inspect a room, we'll start in a pattern left to right. I'll always have the dog on the left, and I'm guiding the dog throughout the room to make sure he does a thorough inspection. Okay, come on, Scotty, let's go. Let's find your bees, come on. Find your bees.
Seeing a bed bug dead or alive can be extremely difficult. Adults are about the size of a grain of rice. Their eggs are smaller than the tip of a ballpoint pen. Can they escape the power of Scout's nose?
Yay, Scotty, good boy. That's a good boy.
As the saying goes, if you don't work, you don't eat, and that's how it is for Scout and Ollie. Instead of one big meal a day, they get a bite to eat every time they successfully complete a job. And that's not the only difference between these dogs and regular dogs.
There's a thin line between having a work dog and a pet. Now, if Scout were to live in our house and sit on the couch and watch TV with us or sleep on our bed at night, then he wouldn't have much incentive to get up and go to work in the morning. But at the same time, he's with me every day. We go to work in the morning, we have lunch together, and then he gets to come home and he has playtime with the other dogs, with our pet dogs.
You could say Scout and Ollie were born for this job. Part Beagle and part Hound, they inherited one of the most powerful noses in the canine world. But their natural-born talent had to be honed before they were ready to work. Their journey began somewhere very far from Hawaii.
Scout is from J&K Kennels. He was trained there as a scent detection dog as part of the National Entomology Scent Detection Canine Association.
Their skills get tested every year as they go through an annual recertification. Right now, they boast a 97% accuracy rate when it comes to finding bed bugs, an amazing feat for an animal that started life pretty tough. They were in an animal shelter before being picked up by J&K Kennels for training. Now they've found success at an actual job.
I'm thrilled to have Scout every day as my workmate. It makes the day go by very fast, very fun way to work.
So next time you complain about working like a dog, remember there are dogs out there, just like Scout and Ollie, that are actually working. You might want to throw them a bone the next time.
Good girl.
Bed bugs are just one of the things that sniffer dogs can detect. But which of the following three items can they also detect? Explosives, mobile phones, or money? Fido pulled a fast one on you. Sniffer or detection dogs can find all three. They're trained to help law enforcement officials find explosives in baggage. They can also detect currency, which could be drug or weapons money. And in prisons, sniffer dogs are used to find mobile phones that might have been smuggled in by prisoners. If you Google the word poi dog, you'll find definitions such as a type of hot dog, an extinct breed of dog from Hawaii, and the Urban Dictionary defines it as slang for a person with more than 4 ethnicities. In this segment, we'll find out the difference between a poi dog and a purebred.
Common thought pattern has always been that purebreds are better. Frankly, they're not. Purebreds are genetically defective generally.
Simply stated, a purebred is a dog with parents of the same breed or variety. So what is a poi dog?
So a poi dog is a dog that's not purebred. It has a lot of what we would call genetic diversity and a lot of strengths that come from that genetic diversity.
If you haven't figured it out yet, a poi dog is a mutt, the opposite of a purebred.
So let's talk a little bit about pure breeding and inbreeding. Essentially, it's the same thing in genetic or biological terms, because when you pure breed a dog, what you're doing is taking a very few ancestor dogs and generating a population from them.
To give you an example, there's a statistic that the 10,000 pug dogs in the United Kingdom are all descendants from 50 individuals. Because those are the dogs that were believed to have the most desirable traits, they continued to be used to father and mother today's population.
So both pure breeding or inbreeding, whatever you want to call it, what it does is it constricts the gene pool and it leads to both desirable and undesirable traits.
Some of the undesirables include a tendency for disease, higher rates of cancer, epilepsy, and even retinal atrophy that can lead to blindness.
And it depends on the breed. So for example, there's a disorder in King Charles Spaniels. Those have been bred over the years to have very small heads. You know, they're cute because they have these very small heads. But there's a disorder that comes along with that called syringomyelia, and what that is where the skull is actually too small to house the brain, and you get pressure on the brain, and the dog suffers neurological disorders and some distress because of that.
Not all purebred dogs are going to suffer from any or all of these diseases, but it is something you should be aware of when getting a purebred as a new family member.
If you want a good, solid family member who's furry, consider adopting a rescue animal.
These days, it's easier to do research on the behavior and physical traits of a specific breed you're interested in. By doing this, you'll have a good idea of what to expect as your puppy grows up and determine if it will be a good match for you. Despite whether you choose a poi dog or a purebred to be a part of your family, they are each unique and beautiful just the way they are. And one thing remains the same: their big hearts, despite their size, shape, color, or breed. The Greyhound is considered the king of canine racers. It's a pure breed that takes the prize for the fastest breed. But do you know how fast it can run? The long-legged, sleek-coated purebred Greyhound can easily attain speeds up to 45 miles per hour. The dog was bred to run that fast to chase down prey, especially quick-running rabbits. There are other breeds that can run almost as fast as the Greyhound, including the Saluki, the Whippet, the Border Collie, the Doberman, and a breed we're going to learn more about next, the Italian Greyhound, in It's All About the Breed. Often called an Iggy, which comes from its initials, the Italian Greyhound is not a miniature Greyhound, but is a cousin of the Greyhound, and is its own distinct breed, dating back at least 2,000 years. Although the Italian Greyhound looks like a regular Greyhound, they're much smaller and have a slenderer build. The Italian Greyhound is also not Italian. The name derives from the Renaissance, when the Italian Greyhound was immensely popular with royalty, including Mary Queen of Scots, Queen Anne, Queen Victoria, Catherine the Great, Frederick the Great, and the Queen of Norway. They originated in an area that's now the countries of Greece and Turkey, where skeletons have been found and verified as Italian Greyhounds. Mummified remains have been found in Egyptian tombs, but it's not clear if they were actually Italian Greyhounds or just small greyhounds. Iggies are a member of the toy group, even though they're bigger than most toy breeds. They're the 73rd most popular breed in the U.S. and have been recognized by the AKC since 1886. Like their cousin, the Italian Greyhound is a born runner, easily reaching speeds of 25 miles an hour. But they're not suited as well as the Greyhound for racing, although some are used for non-sporting straight track or oval racing. They're very agile and love to run and jump. They can often be found perched on top of furniture, much like a cat. But they also love to relax and even sunbathe. Because of their short coat, they get cold easily and love to get under the covers and behind sofa pillows. But watch out, although they can be a couch potato at one moment, they can turn into an agile athlete the next. Italian Greyhounds need regular exercise, and because of their nature, it's ideal if they have a fenced-in yard where they can romp and run around. But be careful, they are also very good jumpers and need fences at least 6 feet high to keep them in. Their coats are short and almost odorless, and they require little more than an occasional bath. They shed a minimal amount of hair, making them ideal for indoor life. But not ideal, however, is the fact that they aren't easy to housebreak. Training must start immediately, and some owners report that they are never able to be completely housebroken. They also hate the cold and rain and would rather make a mistake inside than battle the elements. Otherwise, they're easy to train and love spending time with their owner. They should be socialized early or they can become timid. They're not especially good as guard dogs, as they have a habit of turning and running when they're frightened. The Italian Greyhound, male or female, generally weighs from 6 to 15 pounds and has a lifespan of 14 to 16 years. Health issues include epilepsy, hip and knee disorders, eye problems, including progressive retinal atrophy and cataracts, and hypothyroidism. They are especially prone to periodontal disease, so regular brushing is essential. They also are known for a tendency to break their fragile legs, either by accident from jumping off a high object or roughhousing with boisterous children. That's why it's important to teach children to be gentle with them, although young kids often don't know when they're playing too hard. Otherwise, they make great pets. They're not barkers, and they love to snuggle. And now you know all about the Italian Greyhound. Here's a puzzler. Why do some dogs tilt their heads when you talk to them? Is it just to be cute? According to Dr. Stanley Coren, who studies dog behavior, many people believe the tilting behavior is so that dogs can hear better, or that they know they're being cute and will be rewarded. But Dr. Coren believes it may be because of vision. When a dog looks straight at you, his muzzle is blocking the full view of your face. When he tilts his head to the side, he can see your entire face, including your mouth that's doing all the talking. Now back to more Pets in Paradise TV. Just seconds old, this puppy doesn't even have a name yet, but it may already have a purpose: to give a person a better quality of life.
On Saturday, April 14th at 5:30 a.m., Annie gave birth to 7 healthy puppies. We will be observing these puppies very carefully over the next few weeks to see which ones will be eligible for service work.
By the time the puppies are 3 weeks old, the Hawaiian Canine Assistance Network starts testing to see which pups are a match for service work. From rocking to gentle swapping, these are just the first of many evaluations for the puppies.
Of the 7 puppies, these 4 were selected over a period of 8 weeks of training and observation as we took a look at which puppies potentially had the right temperament and skill level to become service dogs.
Some of the exercises that we did to help us determine which dogs would be ideal from the litter for service dog training were biosensor training. We would put them in different social environments to see how they reacted, what their temperaments were, if they were fearful, and just to see what their temperaments would be like with people and with other dogs.
Just like human children, the puppies love to have fun, interact, and explore. Their carefree play is an important tool for Hawaii Can as it carefully observes, looking for which pups are the calmest, which ones pay attention, which ones enjoy human touch, and which ones are the happiest. A dog needs these traits to find a forever home as a service dog.
So this beautiful dog is Haley, one of the service dogs in training. And when Haley grows up, what we'll be training her to do is to specifically help people with mobility and with hearing issues. So she'll be able to help with someone out when they need to brace. Say it's an older gentleman who's not able to get up from a chair. Help people who might not be able to do just the simple things that we all take for granted, like putting on our clothes and picking something up when it falls. So Haley's going to really be instrumental in making somebody's life just a better way to live and just improving the quality of life for someone. And that's really important.
She heard the click, she knows a treat is coming. So the clicker conveys 3 things to the dog. 1, a treat.
It's not only the dogs that need training. Hawaii Can is made up of volunteers that meet once a week to learn alongside the dogs.
I hit the clicker, she knows I did. Tonight, our foster and furlough trainers are going to learn a little bit more about clicker training and basic obedience skills. They're going to be doing also some shaping exercises, which is a higher form of training for the dogs to learn how to use their brains.
So we're learning a technique called shaping, and what we're trying to do is teach the dog to get help when a person is injured or has fallen and needs help from a human to be picked up. And the object of this training technique is to have Donut, our dog, basically for this time, just a beginning, just to circle the injured person, which is be Michelle. And as soon as she gets close or in the vicinity of Michelle, I'll give her a click. And once she starts touching Michelle, then we will give her a big reward. And that's just to reinforce that she's doing something right. If she starts to turn around and come towards me, then she's not doing what we want her to do. So there's no reward for her and there's no clicking.
Through repetition and positive reinforcement, the dogs learn what could be life-saving skills in the future. But it's a long road before they're out there on their own.
The goal of tonight's session is to train our service dogs to help people with physical disabilities. The training process is actually 2 to 3 years long, and our furlough and foster volunteers are a critical part of that. They are with the furlough and foster volunteers for about 1.5 to 2 years, and then they go on for advanced training with our lead trainers.
While many dogs master commands like sit, roll over, and fetch, these dogs will master 60 to 80 commands, including opening doors, turning on lights, and picking up dropped objects.
Good girl, and she actually is pacing quite nicely. Tonight is one of the examples of the training sessions that they need to go through in addition to the training sessions that we have at the Youth Correctional Facility. As you train a service dog, because dogs don't walk at our pace, if you've ever walked a dog, they walk faster. And usually when you see a brand new dog on leash, you'll see the owner being walked by the dog.
If the years of testing and training are successful, the dogs will begin their next step as full-fledged service dogs.
So one of my jobs is to teach Haley to bond with people, because eventually she's going to be placed with someone with a disability and she'll have to bond with them, and she'll be working with them for probably the rest of her life.
Having a dog placed as a service dog is an incredibly proud moment for the volunteers. But it's also bittersweet.
So I have to bond with her. It's really fast. It's so easy to fall in love with them. But I know that, in a few months I'm going to have to give her up. So it's a little hard, but you know that you're doing it for a really good reason. So, it makes it all worth it.
But finding their forever home in the service of someone in need is a long way off for these puppies, who are still just learning about the world around them. Little do they know, one day, they will help open up the world for someone else.